Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's edition of WCM Supplier Showcase. This week I'm joined by Casey Cochran, Vice President of Sales and Business Development for Campspot. Casey, how you been?
I'm good, enjoying the summer. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Why don't you start us off here? Just give us a quick introduction to Campspot. I know a lot of people in our industry are going to know what you guys do, but for the off chance that somebody doesn't, just talk a little bit about the product.
Sure. Yeah, so we're a campground reservation software first and foremost. Initially when we got our start, we were really focused on large transient parks. That was kind of why the software was initially built, was to kind of fulfill some of those needs. And really, as the software has evolved, we've kind of made the decision that, hey, we want to kind of embrace the entire industry. So, parks big and small, long term, short term, open 3 months out of the year, open 12 months out of the year. We really wanted to create a product that could say, hey, we want every park of all shapes and sizes, whether you're just getting started or you've owned a park for 50 years, for Campspot to be a potential solution for you. There's lots of good solutions out there. We would like to be one of them, right? So with that, kind of came this, feature set and this ability to kind of service the entire industry the best way that we knew how, really from listening to our customers and listening to our partners to get a good understanding of where those needs are. Campspot's really always been focused on driving revenue. At the end of the day, every feature that gets brought up, everything that gets suggested that we build, we kind of start with the foundational question: Can this feature essentially either accelerate occupancy, or can it drive more revenue to a park? So that's kind of our North Star in terms of what we build and why. And part of that led into the development of the Campspot marketplace, which is this idea that, hey, there's lots of people looking to go camping, lots of people that don't know necessarily where they want to go camping. And we want to make that easier for them, right? We want to bridge the gap between people that say, hey, I want to go camping, but I don't know where I want to stay. We were fortunate enough to have a lot of inventory using our software. And so we basically use that as a feature set to say, hey, we want to help drive additional occupancy. We want to help drive additional revenue to your park. One of the ways that we can do that is bridging the gap with new customers that don't know you exist, and essentially showing them your available inventory, while maintaining the integrity of all your rules, your policies, your terms, conditions, your rates, your discounts. All that stuff gets kind of seamlessly put into the marketplace. And so, really, Campspot's kind of two products at this point. We're a marketplace and we're a campground reservation software, but really the marketplace supports our campgrounds, and supports the reservation software as just basically an added revenue driving tool that the parks that use our software are able to take advantage of.
And speaking of two really, really cool features that you don't really see with a lot of booking providers that are out there, two-way texting and this self-service guest portal were two things that jumped out as me, coming from the marketing background and somebody that's obviously used the system in the past. That's just really, really cool, especially when we talk about
Sure.
parks that are maybe light on staff and where the guests can actually service themselves and help just go through that process online, adjust the reservation as needed for parks to adapt that, and the ability to directly communicate with guests, I think are two things that have really changed as the landscape has changed. So can you just talk a little bit about, why did you put those into place, and really the importance of those features?
Yeah, so I mean, at the foundation level, one way to drive revenue is to save on labor, right? I mean, there's a direct correlation there in terms of bottom line revenue, and at the end of the year, essentially, is the business making more money or less money? And obviously, labor is a big part of that. So we look at everything through the lens of what can be automated, and what should still be a customer focused part of the process. And so it really started with online cancellations, allowing parks that wanted to allow the guests to cancel their own reservation, taking that layer of that phone call out of the equation and allowing the guests to just do that, and it automatically follows their cancellation policies, the refund policies, things of that sort. The next wave of that evolution was guest self-serve edits. There's some stats that we pulled from our parks that, somewhere in 20 to 30% of reservations at times often get edited in some capacity or changed in some capacity. So this is the kind of the first phase in saying, well, if there's that volume of phone calls coming in to edit, change, or cancel something, Can we put that in the customer's hand to alleviate that from the park having to facilitate that, right? Having to be answering the phone calls at all times of the day and at night. And so obviously that starts with online reservations, right? Starting there, getting those phone calls away if possible, and to online cancellations if they want to enable it. And then guest self-serve edits was kind of the next evolution in that, really putting the control back into the consumer's hands to alleviate kind of that pressure and that labor for park owners to kind of feel it, instead of being kind of a slave to the admin aspect of things. They can hopefully get out and enjoy their customers, enjoy their parks a little bit more. Kind of same thing with text messaging. Campspot launched one-way text messaging in app, and we got a lot of feedback from parks that they wanted to be able to communicate both ways. And so that was one of the first integrations that we built, after kind of like the Airbnb and Vrbo and things of that sort for lodging units. We built an integration into MailChimp, which, as most people know, is a large CRM tool. And part of that integration enables what's called SimpleTexting, which is a two-way text messaging feature that parks can take advantage of if they want to kind of open up that lines of communication beyond just the one-way texting or communication. So we're super excited about that. That launched earlier. We're on the cusp of really launching a bunch of integrations that we're super excited about, with everything from gate integration to restaurant point of sale to smart metering. And so all that should start to see coming out here over the next coming months for parks to really be able to kind of implement and take advantage for either the remainder of the camping season, or for sure have it in place for next season. So we're super excited about the integrations and the kind of the path that we're taking there, because we're going to be launching a lot of those kind of continually, almost each month here for the foreseeable future. So we're super excited about that.
And Casey, one of the other more recent releases that I think you guys did was the SOC 2 certification with the security and really the infrastructure that you guys are building out there. It's probably a little bit too technical for most campground owners, but can you simplify and just talk about, like, what does that mean for them? Because I think it's super important, especially within the age we're at now, to talk about, why choosing your partner matters, and things like security is really important to protect you and your campers' data.
Yeah. So when you talk about SOC 2, this is all about data security, right? So this is kind of the gold standard for a SaaS company to be able to kind of show and prove through third party auditing that your data is as secure as it can possibly be in terms of these standards. And so, kind of this common theme is this idea of, is our data protected, and, do we own our data, and is this data being shared? And so Campspot, since day one, that's always been, a huge mindset for us, is that this data is secure. This data is yours and yours alone. And going through this auditing process, which is a very, very rigorous process, to be certified in SOC 2 just kind of shows and exemplifies kind of the extent that we as a company are going to go to protect parks data, their customer information, their booking information. And so that just kind of sets the standard in terms of data security, specifically in our space. That's the highest level of data security that we can essentially put ourselves through. And the nice thing, I think the comforting thing, is this isn't a one-time thing, right? This isn't something that we do once and then, it's there forever. Like, it's a continuous process. It's a continuing auditing process. That's very resource intensive. It's very costly for us to go through this. But it's worth it, right? It's worth it for our partners, and our parks and the industry, essentially, to kind of know the extent, and the importance that we take with data security.
And so obviously this, but this industry in itself is a relationship defined business. And obviously Campspot does a great job of having fantastic relationships with the partners and the people that use the platform. One of the other things that, I really loved and heard from a lot of park owners here over at Woodall's is the sort of expansion into 24/7 support that you guys are now offering through this summer season. Can you just talk a little bit about, how that came about and whether or not you plan to continue this, either into the off season or next summer, and just continue to make this a part of how your support team functions and is really there to help support the park through all facets of their journey?
Yeah. So this has been a kind of a long decision-making process for us, and we're super excited about it. So the idea is we want to meet the customers when they need us, right? And having someone on staff all the time, or having more people on staff when people need it, right? So there's always kind of been this balance of saying, well, do you want resources sitting there when there's, potentially one call coming in, or do you want to have that person when there's, 50 potential calls coming in, right? And so we took the approach of really just tackling both. We decided to scale up our support team in general. And we've had just phenomenal impacts that we've been able to make for parks in terms of just answer rates and response rates. And so we kind of took this all in approach to say we want to look at support as a feature. Really, we want to look at it as a part of our DNA. And we feel we can't remove that, right? That's just always going to be a part. And we released, we have a very robust online resource site. We have a Campspot certification program that really enables parks to be trained and be aware of things. I think something in the tunes of like 65 to 75% of support calls through Campspot are training related, right? They're information based, that the information's there. We essentially need to arm our parks with it. So we went down the certification road to make sure that that's there, that's in place. Then we've scaled up our support team internally. And then we decided to say, at least during the main busy season, we're going to open up to 24/7 support. We're going to evaluate that. We're going to see the volume, the need for that. And absolutely, if it's something that parks need, or the volume is there, or the volume of calls warrants it, it's something we absolutely plan to expand. But we'll base that on the data, right? We'll base that on how often parks are using it, how often they need it. But during the main peak season, we wanted to open that up as a way to say, hey, we're here for you when you need it. Sometimes that's on a Sunday at 6 p.m. And sometimes that's at midnight. And so we've expanded that. We're excited about it. But really, it's the 24/7 support is really, I think, maybe like an explanation point to our commitment to support in general, right? Really beefing that team up, and going through some extensive training with our team internally, and then investing into the external resources that parks have, both on our support site and through the certification program that's free for them to go through, their staff can go through. Because we all know in this space specifically, you have employees, young and old. You have employees that are just there seasonally. You have employees that are maybe just there on the weekends, and part-time, full-time, and things of that sort. And unfortunately, just like in any industry, there is turnover. So how can we arm parks to not put that massive emphasis on training when there is obvious turnover? Well, they can go through the certification program on their own time, on their own accord. The park owners or managers can see specifically what they passed, what they didn't. But then even beyond that, we need to be a stable resource for all of our parks. And so we just made that a very big priority for us. Now and moving forward, that support's going to be something that all parks can rely on from Campspot moving forward.
Then as we wrap up here, Casey, can you just give us a little bit of a preview coming out of the 4th of July holiday? How are parks doing on the platform as far as occupancy goes or as far as reservations go? I think a lot of people are really hopeful, and, we're continuing to see interest from campers and people that are going out and exploring parks. They're maybe traveling a little bit more. How are parks doing that are on the system? And then as we wrap up, just give people a place to reach out and contact either you or somebody on the sales team if they do want to get started and try out this whole Campspot thing.
Sure. Yeah. So, really, this starts with, actually something that we released, which is called Campspot Analytics. And we offer this as, again, an additional feature that really kind of opens up all data and all reporting for parks. And it really allows them to really pull any and all piece of data that they need about their park and about their system, or their organization, right, for the multi-park groups, and allows them to customize any data set and puts a visual dashboard in front of them to see specifically how their park is performing year over year and metrics and things of that sort. So that was a big focus of ours, is saying, let's arm every park with the information and the data they need on their park to help make these decisions. In terms of like overall, like the entire, ecosystem, I guess, of the, 2,400 or so parks that are part of kind of the Campspot system. In the beginning of the season, and we actually released what's called a campsite insights report for all of our partners, all of our parks, that gives an overall trends of how things are performing almost on a monthly basis in terms of the overall industry versus, kind of how things are performing within Campspot. And so at the beginning of the season, there's definitely, cause for, I wouldn't say alarm, but where we were seeing, anywhere from maybe 12 to 18%, a slowness in terms of reservations and occupancy and things of that sort. But over since June and into July is really exploded. It's really taken off, back to previous year's numbers, which we didn't know if we were ever going to get to those numbers again, right? We didn't know if the level, like those kind of those COVID numbers and somewhere in between there, if we were going to kind of start to get to that level. And I think we're close to 2 million reservations that have been booked through Campspot already this season. And obviously we'll go well beyond that because we're kind of, still scratching the surface of the summer and camping season. And it's really taken a huge turn back in the campground's favor, in June and July. It's specifically like our marketplace that we're super excited about, because that's always been built for an additional way to bring parks occupancy. And we've seen anywhere from about an average of 6 to 8% of increased occupancy for parks that are on the marketplace versus parks that aren't. And so the goal again is to drive revenue and to drive occupancy for the parks that choose our software. But in terms of overall, like of all the parks that are using of Campspot in trends and booking, June and July have been extremely promising. It's been really exciting to see the volume of camping picking up, and it's almost like each day or each week we're just seeing increases and increases, which is really promising for the industry overall. Because obviously every park outside of just Campspot, of course, is seeing probably similar trends, which is really exciting, right? Like that's as exciting as it gets is the fact that, we had some of these crazy COVID years and camping was kind of like the default thing to do, like the safest thing to do. But what we're seeing is that it's sticky, right? People are doing it and then they're enjoying it, right? And they're investing into more trips. And so that's part of our goal from like a marketing standpoint on the marketplace, is to say, let's create more camping trips, right? Let's get people, instead of choosing to stay in a hotel or choosing to stay somewhere else, what can we do from a marketing standpoint to get not necessarily just more people camping, but more people camping more times, right? Let's create more camping nights. And that's good for the industry, right? That's good for everybody. So, and to kind of summarize that up, things have looked really good in June. Things are continuing to look really good in July, and we expect that to carry through August and September. So it's exciting stuff, because we're seeing the volumes of reservations and bookings, and just even ADR, right? I mean, the average daily rates and things of that sort. We're seeing that continue to be able to climb for a lot of parks, which is what you want, right? That's where you make your money, and that's how you continue to invest more in your park.
And then Casey, where can people go to reach out if they want to learn more?
Oh yeah. So yeah, campspot.com, or just sales@campspot.com. We're happy to get in touch with you and share more about what we do, what we think we do well, and if that'd be a good fit for your park. But yeah, we'd love to connect with anyone that's looking to either add online reservations or just learn a little bit more about what we do. We'd be happy to chat with anyone interested.
Casey, thanks again for being here.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. We'll see you.
Thanks again for listening to WCM Supplier Showcase. As a reminder, the show's available as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and it will also be available as a full video on Facebook and YouTube. All right, guys, we'll see you again next week.